Okay, so there you go. So let's go to the next chapter, which would be chapter 11. Please don't, whenever you have a question, just type in the chat, and then I can find it, answer it. So chapter 11 is looking at IP version 4 addressing. So of course, I think we talked about IP in one of those modules we talked about. I talked about the IP has two versions. It's IP version 4, IP version 6. Now it's IP version 6 will eventually replace IP version 4 as the routing protocol. But as we talk now, both of them are being used concurrently. Yeah. So, but of course, on most of our networks here in Africa, sadly, we're still using IP version 4 addressing. Even if, of course, last time we talked about the limitations of IP version 4. Somehow in Africa, you know that we always adopt technologies much later. But so you notice that even in your university networks, if I'm not mistaken, you may still be using IP version 4 addressing those networks. But let's look at the structure. So an IP version 4 address is a 32-bit hierarchical address that is made up of a network portion and host portion. So there are two things you need to take. There are some things you need to take note of. 32-bit. So there are 32 bits. You know what a bit is? A 0 or a 1. That's made up of a network portion and a host portion. So when determining the network portion versus the host portion, you look at the whole 32-bit stream, and then there's what you call a subnet mask, which determines the network and the host portion. So let's look at an example here. We're saying an IP address is 32-bit hierarchical address. So this is 32 bits. Here you go. These are 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits, and 8 bits. 8, 8, 8. That makes how many? That makes 32 bits. Yeah. Now, each of these groups of 8 bits, they are known as an octet. So this is an octet, this is an octet, this is an octet, and octet. So those are 4 octets. Now, by then, for simplicity reasons, the bits, the binary numbers, are converted to decimal. So the equivalent of this number is 192. The equivalent of this number is 168. The equivalent of this number is 10, and the equivalent of this number is 10. It's decimal. Decimal is base 10. Yeah. And then they are separated by dots. 192.168.10. So this is how you're going to see an IP address when you check on your computer. It will appear like this, not like this. Yeah. But then the computer, the operating system of the computer will understand it as this. For you, when you're telling the address, you don't use bits, you use decimal. It's for simplicity. Yeah. It's completely hard for you to understand binary numbers. So you can see that the first 3 octets represent the network portion, and the last octet represents the host portion. How does this come about? How is this determined? Is by a subnet mask. So I'll see how a subnet mask is applied to the address, determine the network portion and the host portion. Okay. So this is what happens. So you have an IP address that you can see here. This is a random address. And then you have a subnet mask. The subnet mask appears like this. What is a subnet mask? Are you people hearing me? I hear some people. Someone was complaining that the audio is lost. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, you're able. Okay, let's mute and proceed then. Okay, so this is the address that you've seen in the previous slide, 192.168.10.10, and this is the subnet mask 255.255.255.0. Now the address we've seen converted to binary is 11, the way you see it here, and I'll bring up my pointer. Okay. So this is the address, this is the subnet mask in binary, it appears like this. Now what happens is you're going to compare the address with the subnet mask by what we call ANDing, binary ANDing. How does the process of ANDing work? You compare the bit per bit. So you compare a 1 and a 1. A 1 and a 1 is a 1. A 1 and a 1 is a 1. A 0 and a 1 is a 0. Right? Yes, a 0 and a 1 is a 0, and a 0 and a 0 is a 0. So you do the comparison, the binary ANDing, and then at the end of it all, you will get an address that appears as like the whole of this, the way you see this. If you can do this up to the end, if you have a pen, you can do that computation. You'll have the whole of this, and then in this first portion, you'll have zeros. Now, when you have zeros in the first portion of the address, that kind of address is known as a network address. So that's how the subnet mask determines the host and the network bits. Now, this is the subnet masks. So I still, someone says that they cannot hear me. I think you need to check your audio device. You need to check on your device if you're not able to hear me, but I think I'm fine with my end. So this is the subnet mask right here. The subnet mask, this is subnet mask. These are examples of subnet masks. And this is the same converted to binary. If you convert this number to binary, 255 in binary is 11111, and 0 in binary is 0, but because we're looking at octet, and we also said octet, there are 8 bits, so we have to write 8 zeros, 8 zeros, 8 zeros. The same thing happens here, the same thing happens here, the same thing happens even if you convert to binary, the same thing. Here the equivalent. Now, this same subnet mask can be written using the prefix length notation. So the prefix length notation, you count the number of ones. Like here, for example, how many ones do we have? There are 8 ones, so it becomes /8. What does this one mean? A /8 means 8 bits represent the network, and the zeros here represent the host. So it means for this subnet mask, your network portion is the first 8, the first octet actually, and the last 3 octets are host portion. So the same thing happens here. This is /16, meaning that there's 16 bits representing the network and 16 representing the host. Same thing here, same thing here. So this is what we call a prefix length. So in an address, you can always have an address with prefixes. Actually, when we move on, we shall see that addresses are going to be assigned a prefix length at the end. Okay, so this is the ANDing process that we described up here. Yeah. So it's here, the process is indicated for you. So you have the address in binary, the subnet mask, binary, then you do the ANDing. The 1 and the 1 is the 1. The 1 and the 1 is the 1. The 0 and the 1 is a 0. The 0 and the 1 is a 0. So you do all these all this, and all this. Now, once you convert this, the result that you've got back, you'll see you'll get 192.168.10, and in the host portion, what do you have? 0. Now, like I told you, whenever I have 0 in the host portion, 0 in the host portion, that is called a network address. Okay, so let's look at the network, the host, and the broadcast address. So within each network are 3 types of IP addresses. When you talk about a network, here, what do we mean? A network is basically a group of devices that are in the same logical grouping. Like you can see here, this is a router that is connecting a switch. You have about 4 computers. Yeah. So this is a network. This is just one network segment. Remember, a router connects networks. So this is just one network segment because you just have one connection from the router. So this is a network. So if this is a network, then if I'm going to assign these computers addresses, how do I do it? Now you notice here that our network is with our network is 192.168.10. What? Our network is 192.168.10.0/24. So that's our network address. Now you see the /24 here. The /24 means there are 24 bits representing the network. Okay, so a moment, please. So I'm trying to use this tool. I'm not very familiar with it, but that's the network dot. This is 192.168.10.0/24. See that? So what does this mean? The /24 does it mean? The /24 means that from here, 24 bits up here is our network. 24 bits. And therefore it means here, this last octet here is our host. Right? So if that's our network and that's our host, so remember we're saying that the network represents an entire segment. Yeah. So it means that if I'm going to assign hosts in that network, my first host, yeah, sorry for that, I hope it's understandable. My first host would be the way you see all this 192.168.10. Now in the host portion here, I increase it by 1. So that becomes, sorry. So let me write the whole of it, 168.10.1. That's my first host. Yeah, that's my first host. So the second host will be .2. You maintain the network here, and the next host will be .2, .3, .4, .5, .6, up to where? Up to up to can someone tell me what will be the last one? Because if you start from .1, .2,
254.
up to what is the last host?
254.
254
254.
exactly. Yeah. So the last host is .254. Let's go back to our slide here. Okay, up to .255. So you can see here, this is our so this is the first host. You can see the router interface needs to be given an IP address. You gave it the first host address. The next one here is here. Now for this case, you're not following. They are not following order, but the next one would have been .2, .3, .4, .5 like that. But here you can see the .10, .55, .101, .12. Now the first host, which is the .0, is what you call a network address. That one you don't assign it. Now you can start assigning. You start assigning from .1, .2, .3. Now if someone told me that you go up to .254, which is this. So this is the first address, .1. The last one is .254, and .255, because an IP address, the range can range from 0 in each octet to 255. So 255 is the last one. And when you convert to 55 is the same as all ones. This address is known as a broadcast address. So you have a network address, which is a .0, and then you have the host address range, which ranges from 1 up to 154 for this example. And the last one is the broadcast address, which is used when the node, like for example, this node is sending a message to or so the network address and the broadcast address, you do not assign it to a host. Yeah, that's what it means. So I think these types of communication we already know. Unicast is a scenario where a computer has its own address which can be used to communicate to another. So from one node to another. Yeah, that's a unicast communication. Yeah. And the address actually in this range of first address to the last address, those are unicast addresses. Then you have a broadcast address. Now that's address we just talked about here. In this case, this one here. The broadcast address is an address that sends a message from one node all. So when this node is sending a broadcast message, in the destination part of the address, you'll have a broadcast address, and you send all the addresses on the network, all the nodes on the network. And I think when we're talking about IP addressing last time, we said, if you remember, when talking about the network layer, we mentioned a bit about it, and we said we do not have broadcast addresses in IP version 6. When we talk about IP version 6, you shall see there is no broadcast. And then the multicast is where a message originates from one node to a group. So you can see here from this node to several nodes, but not all of them. Yeah. Now, broadcast addresses, if you guys have studied classes of addresses, that is class D addresses. So class D addresses are categorized as broadcast what? Addresses. Types of addresses. Now, addresses can be categorized as public and private addresses. Public and private. Yeah. What's the difference? Now, private addresses, what you're seeing in this table, these are the private addresses. 10.0.0.0 to 10.255.255.255, this range. The next range of private addresses is right here. It's another range here. And then the last range is this one here. Private addresses are addresses that you use internally on your LAN, internally within the network. What does that mean? It means if you're setting up a LAN in your office or in a university, or maybe you have a company and you have about 5 users and you want them to share files and communicate internally among themselves, you have a printer that you want to share, you use private addresses because they are used internally within network. However, for public addresses, those are addresses you need when you want to connect to the internet. So for the private addresses, they are used internally, not on the internet. Yeah, that's the thing. So they're used internally within a network. They are not globally routable. Yeah, that's what it means. Now for the public addresses, those are the ones that are internet routable. So it means if this is my LAN, network 1, I have network 2, network 3, these are my internal networks. You can use private addresses here and you're not able to communicate together. But then if I want these networks here to be on the internet, I will need public what? Address. Now, how do you make sure that the public address is visible on the internet? What you're going to do on these edge routers, you're going to configure a process known as NAT. NAT in full is network address translation. So what NAT does is translates the private IP version for address here to the public address, and that public address is what will be visible on the internet. Remember, we have one internet. I hope you people know that. There's one internet globally. Yeah. So it means if you're on that internet, your address that you're using on the internet should not be used by anyone else in the world. Yeah. So that's why there is this kind of translation. If you're using private addresses here, they will never be visible on the internet. Yeah. That is not. That's private and public addresses. Special use of IP version for addresses. There are other addresses that are used on the special types of addresses. Examples are loopback addresses. I think we talked about loopback addresses last time. Loopback addresses are used to test the operation of the TCP/IP. So if you want to check if TCP/IP is operational on a network, you just pick that loopback address and you ping the address. So the address in this range, these are loopback addresses. There's also what called a link local address. Yeah. This is also known as an automatic private IP address or a self-assigned address. Yeah. Now, sometimes most of you, if you've ever checked on your computer, it's not able to reach the DHCP server. Usually, it assigns an address in this range. That is known as a link local address. Okay, then there's what you call classful addresses. Now, if you started CCNA long time ago, I don't know what is long time ago, but if you've done this training previously, they used to teach about classes of addresses. Now, there are 5 classes of addresses. There's class A, class B, class C, class D, class E. You see, it's legacy. Yeah, it's a legacy addressing plan. Now, the way it works is that addresses previously were assigned by classes. So if an organization was a big network enterprise, they use a class A address, a class B address, class C. Those are the ones that are used. So you use class A, B, and C. Class D is not used. It is reserved for multicasting. Class D is reserved for this purpose. Class multicasting. Yeah. When a message is coming from one node and it's going to several nodes. So you have a multicast group, and it means that the message will be assigned to that multicast group. Class E is also reserved, it's not used. Class E is used for research and experimental use. Yeah. However, classful addresses wasted many IP version 4 addresses. Yeah. So this addressing plan was replaced by classless addressing, which ignores the rules of classes. So classless ignores the rules of the prefix length. And you can see here a bit of statistics about how addresses can be wasted if you're using classes of addresses. Now, assignment of IP addresses. How are these IP addresses assigned? And when talking about assigning addresses here, we're talking about public addresses. We're not interested in private addresses. Because remember, we said private addresses are used internally. They are free for anyone to use. Yeah. Anyone can use the private address the way they want. The public addresses, on the other hand, remember, they are internet routable. And we said we have one internet. So there must be a way of controlling that. Someone here, is this Europe, where I'm pointing my cursor? Someone up here in Europe cannot be using the same address as someone. I'm trying to identify Nigeria on the map. Is it here? Yeah. Okay, so someone here in Europe is not able to use your address that you're using in Nigeria, your university. So the addresses are assigned by registries. But first of all, at the top, there's what we call an Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. This is a function of an organization known as ICANN. Yeah. So the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority allocates addresses to 5 registries. There are 5 regional registries in the world, and they are listed here. So this is the region for Africa. There's one for the South America. There's the North America, the US and Canada. There's Europe. There's Asia. This is Europe. This is Asia, and I think some islands there. So what happens is that the registries manage the assignment of addresses. So it means a region like Africa will have blocks of addresses. Yeah. And if you're a university in Nigeria and you want blocks of addresses, you're going to go to Afrinic. And Afrinic will assign you a block of addresses. Now, what your network administrator will do is to assign those addresses in your university. Yeah. Remember, an address cannot be duplicated. Yeah. Or in some case, if you're a small network, like you have an office and you want an IP address, a public address, you'll go to your ISP. So your ISP can also assign you an address. And the ISPs, of course, get the addresses from the regional registry. Yeah. So you need to understand the difference between public address and private address. Please make sure you mute yourself if you have some background noise.
This morning, as I yesterday, there was funding. If I'm able, again, something easy again. May what are what is once you are on it always seem when you have any say, but I don't meet you know what's the more
I'm not seeing where the noise is coming from. Check it on yourself. Otherwise, we're getting feedback in the class. Okay, so I was still showing you. So then there's what you call a broadcast domain and segmentation. Broadcast domain is a part of a network. Remember, we talked about broadcast. Like, for example, if a message originates from any node that's connected on this switch, which segment will receive the broadcast? A broadcast is received within a segment or a LAN that is connected to the router. Yeah. So switches are able to send broadcasts. Routers don't send broadcasts. So it means that if a message is originated from any node on any of these switches, it will be received on this segment here. It will never go beyond the router because routers do not propagate what? Broadcast. So this one here, this part of the network, becomes what you call a broadcast domain. Becomes what you call broadcast. So the bigger the broadcast, if your broadcast becomes very big, it becomes quite hard for you to manage the network because it introduces a lot of traffic on the network. So usually, a network designer should achieve the smallest size of the broadcast because it means then you're containing traffic on the network. So this is the problem with the large broadcast. The problem with large broadcast domain is that these hosts can generate excessive broadcast and impact on the network. So you can see this design here, LAN 1, it has 400 users. But you see what happens now. Instead of having all the 400 users on one LAN segment, see what you've done? You divide it. So you have a LAN segment here, LAN 1, LAN 2. So it means now instead of 400 users, you have 200 users here, you have 200 users here. What have you achieved? You have reduced the size of the broadcast. So it means you're able to reduce the excessive broadcast and the amount of traffic that's generated. So the network becomes much faster. Yeah. So again, what have you done? Instead of a /16 subnet here, you have divided it to one subnet, one LAN, and another LAN. And this process is known as subnetting. Yeah. So subnetting is basically the process of dividing the network, like in this case, this network here. This network here to this and this. And that's what you call what? Subnetting. So next we're going to look at subnetting. How do you subnet? Yeah. You can segment networks or subnet by location, like here you can see. So you can have one subnet if it's a building on the first floor, the second floor is another segment, the third floor is another segment, the fourth floor, fifth floor is another segment, and all of these segments connect through a router to the internet. The function of a router, remember we said, is to connect one network to another. So basically you're connecting this LAN, this LAN, this LAN, this LAN, this LAN. Because each of the LANs is an independent network. You can also subnet or you can also segment by group or function. So in a typical university, you have students, you have staff. So you could have a LAN for staff. You could have human resources or administration. Like for this case, you can see there's students, there's accounting, they have their own subnet, human resources, administration. Yeah. Again, here you're reducing the size of the broadcast. Or you could subnet by device types. Yeah. So you could say all the hosts will be on one subnet. All printers would be on another, but I don't know how many printers would you have really have a subnet for it. You could say all servers have their own subnet. So that could be also a reason for segmenting networks. How do you subnet network? Okay, so let's first hold on this part of the sub of the module again. I'm going to go to the next module, look at IP version 6, and then I'll come back and look at how we subnet. Yeah. Okay, so let me first keep part of this chapter, and I got chapter 4. Okay, so chapter 12 is IP addressing, but let me first, before I proceed to chapter 12, let me see your questions and maybe answer those questions before I can proceed to chapter 4. Okay. So someone has asked, can we just choose the subnet mask and the network arbitrarily? Okay, so that's so can anyone answer for us that question? Anyone who can answer for that? Someone is asking, I think that was Ojori. How do you choose? Can you choose the subnet mask? Okay, now it seems we can't because there's a lot of noise. Anyone who wants to answer the question, I unmute you. Raise your hand if you want to answer that question. Can we just choose a subnet mask and the network arbitrarily? Anyone who wants to answer the question? Gloria? I see your name.
I lost connection.
You lost connection, okay.
Yeah, I just connected back. What is the question anyway?
So one of you is asking, of course, we've been talking about network addressing. So how do you choose a subnet mask and a network address? Do you choose arbitrarily? That was his question.
I was going to ask that question.
You're going to answer that.
How do you choose a subnet mask?
You're going to ask the same question, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question.
Okay. All right. So let me answer the question. So
I guess
this
hello,
what happened.
Sir.
Yes. Okay. Go on. Ojori.
Hello?
Yes, please.
Hello? Maybe
Yes.
something like that. You decide which network mask or network by looking at the number of hosts you have. This will inform your
Okay. Olusegun, thank you. This was Damilola, right?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
you said you already answered the question. I think during the lecture you said something about different classes. So I think when choosing, we should not choose outside those classes. So maybe that was actually what I was asking. I thought you can just choose arbitrarily, but now I think something I've gotten.
Okay. Thank you guys for your contribution. But this is how I think you should answer that. Is that one, when you're planning, first of all, you go through an IP addressing plan. So you'll know my network is this size. Yeah. I'll know that I have a network of 100 users or 100 hosts. Then I will choose. So if I have 100 users, remember that you cannot repeat an address. So it means I need 100 IP addresses. So I think that was, or Jerry was talking about classes. Now, classes of addresses are no longer used when you're planning. Yeah? You don't use classes of addresses. Instead, you're going to use the prefix. So if I have 100 users, I will choose an address that is able to address 100 users. with minimal wastage. When you're addressing, we usually look at the minimal wastage of what? Of addresses. So let's say, for example, I hope you're able to see my whiteboard. If let's say, for example, I say, what's your planning now? I have 100 users. 100 users. Right? Okay, 100 user. Let me use user or users. Users, 100 users. So if I have a network like this, his question was, do you choose arbitrarily? You don't just choose. You have to know how many users you have. Dot 0 slash 24. Now, how many users do I have here? How many addresses can I address? Remember, we said the first address is a .1, and we said the last one is a .what? 25 what? 254. Is it? So 100 users are actually able, this network is able to address 100 users because you have 254 addresses, and I have 100 users, so it means I have a balance of addresses. That would be okay. If, for example, this network grew to 200, it can still be addressed. If it goes to 300, now you can no longer use this, because this one means it's not able to address all the what? The 300. So it means you have to pick another address with another subnet mask, and probably that will be an address with a lesser prefix length. Yeah, an address with a lesser prefix length, less than 24/24. So basically, we shall look at the planning more in when you're talking about subnetting. But for now, this one gives you a picture how you choose. Yeah, gives you a picture how you choose. So you choose the address that's able to address all the users. Yeah, with minimal what? With minimal wastage. Okay, so let's briefly look at IP version 6, and then we shall come back to the subnetting bit. So it's better for us to look at both types of addresses, and then we can look at the subnetting bit of it. So IP version 6 is, of course, a newer version of IP addressing. Yeah. And of course, like we said, eventually IP version 6 will replace IP version 4. Eventually. We can't put a time frame, we don't know when. Yeah, we can't put a time frame, but eventually it will replace. Yeah, when you no longer have any IP version of address. I think I mentioned last time that all regions of the world that we talked about up there have run out of IP version 4 addresses. It's only Africa that still has some blocks of IP version 4 addresses. So eventually, even us in Africa, we may no longer even right now, IP version 4 is not scalable enough. So we need to be moving to IP version 6. Okay, so the issues of IP, these are the regions I'm talking about. You can actually see here the depths of exhaustion. The North America region addresses got exhausted in 2015. Which means all the blocks of addresses that they were assigned have run out. This is South America, but as early as 2011. This is Asia, I think. 2014 is Europe. As early as 2012, they did have blocks of addresses. in Africa, you can see a projected IP version for exhaustion date is 2020. 2020 is we're in 2020 already. So that's the main reason why we should be migrating to IP version 6. So IP version 4 addressing is running out of addresses. IP version 6 would be the successor for IP version 4 because it has a much larger address space. The development of IP version 6 included some fixing of the limitations and other enhancements. Of course, it's a new protocol, so there's some enhancements to the protocol. And then, so with an increasing internet population, the internet is growing, a limited IP version of address space, we talked about that. Issues with NAT. You remember I talked about NAT, where the addresses are translated, private addresses are translated to public addresses. IoT means Internet of Things, so it means you have a lot of things, normal things, yeah, that are able to connect to your network. So each of those things that are connecting, things like in your house, for example, you have a fridge, you have a TV, you have all those smart devices in your house, all of them being able to connect to the network, it means you need a lot more addresses. So, however, both IP version 4 and IP version 6 can coexist as it is right now. Yeah. So you can have both of them coexisting together. You can be running IP version 4 and IP version 6 concurrently on your network. Or you can have segments of your network running IP version 4 and segments of your network running IP version 6. Or you can be connecting with IP version 4 on your network, but on your ISP already migrated IP version 6. All those things are possible. This is coexistence. So there are methods of coexistence or migration techniques, how you can migrate sequentially from IP version 4 to IP version 6. The first of those techniques is known as dual-stack. This is where devices run both IP version 4 and IP version 6 simultaneously. The second method is tunneling. It's a method of transporting an IP version 6 packet over an IP version 4 network. And the third is known as translation. So this is where you have a direct translation. IP version 6 enabled devices are translated into IP version 4, and IP version 4 protocol is translated into IP version 6. That's called translation techniques. So, how do you represent? What is the structure of an IP version 6 address? So, I've already mentioned that IP version 6 addresses are 128 bits length. You know what a bit is? 0 or 1. So these are 128 zeros and 1. However, it's written in hexadecimal. The addresses are not case sensitive, so you can use uppercase and lowercase characters. Yeah. However, the preferred format for writing addresses is this, with each hex consisting of 4 hexadecimal values. In IP version 6, a hextet, which is not an official term, is used to refer to a segment of 16 bits. So these are 16 bits, 16 bits, 16 bits, 16 bits, 16 bits, 16 bits. If you do very fast math, 16, 16, 16, these are 8 times 8 of them, will give you 128 bits. So it's an example of an IP version 6 address. Looks complicated? The first time, yes, looks complicated. Yeah, but it's very okay, and this will be the norm in a few years to come. Yeah. So if you're a network administrator, you need to get used to this. If you're going to be managing a network, get used to this. Looks complicated. The first time you look at it, it looks complicated, but it's not. So we have 16 bits here, 16 bits here, 16 bits here, 16, 16, 16, 16. Remember, these are hexadecimal numbers. So if there are 16 bits in each hex state, we're calling each of these an hex state. And you have 4 numbers. So it means each number is representing how many bits? 16 divided by 4 is 4 bits. So you have 4 zeros and 1s here. So you have this number converted to binary, to give you 4 zeros, 4 zeros, 4 zeros, and not zeros. 4 octet, no. 4 bits, 4 bits, 4 bits, 4 bits. So that makes 60. Same thing here, the same thing here, the same thing here. The total should be 120. The same thing here. So this is an example of an IP variant 6 address. Now, here you could say this is complicated, but then there are rules that you can use to shorten the address. The first rule is you omit leading 0. How do you omit leading 0? Let's have an example here. This is an example of an address. Here, do you have any leading 0? No, because this is 2001. Leading 0 means the 0 on the left, I think. Yeah, on the left. So there is no leading 0 here. But there is a leading 0 here because it's 0DD8. So we can omit this and it will become this. Here we have 3 leading zeros. So we can omit the first 3 zeros and it comes. Here there is no leading 0. Here there are 3 zeros. And here you have first 0. So omit the first 0. That's the first rule of shortening address. The second rule is you use a double colon to replace any single contiguous strings of 1 or more 16-bit hexes consisting of all zeros. So this is what it means. Let's look here. So in the example we've seen the other side, we reduce the address to this, but then you notice there is a 0, there is a 0, there is a 0. Zeros or contiguous strings of zeros are following each other. So these can be replaced by a double colon. So instead of having these 0, 0, 0, put a double colon there. However, that double colon can only appear once. Can only be used once within an address. You can't put a double colon here and a double colon here. The address will be wrong. The double colon should only appear once. Why once? It's because the router should be able to know, or the operating system, that the double colon here is representing 3 contiguous zeros. Yeah. If you put a double colon here and a double colon here, the operating system may not be able to interpret how many zeros is represented by this double colon, how many zeros is represented by this double colon. So the double colon should always appear once. I wish I could give you an example of how to shorten an address. Okay, I think I'll give you some examples that you can go and shorten, and then you come with them tomorrow. I'll give you an exercise how to shorten addresses. IP version 6 address types. So there are 3 address types in IP version 6. There's a unicast, a multicast, and an anycast. Someone is raising his hand. Damilola. You want to type the question or you want to talk?
I want to ask a question.
Yes.
Like emitting the colon with 0, 0, 0, representing it with double colon, with 2 double colons. Like what if the columns having 0, 0, 0 are more than 3? Are we still going to represent it with the double colon, the one that appears twice?
I didn't hear you very well, David. If you can.
Okay.
Okay, please go ahead. Maybe I will hear you.
Yeah, my question is that eliminating the columns with 0, 0, 0 and representing it with a double column that appear twice. what if we, like the example you gave, we have just 3 columns. If the 0, 0 is more than or is 2 or more than 3 columns, are we still going to represent it with that double column that will appear twice?
Okay, so this is what you're going to do. If you have strings of zeros on one end and strings of zeros on the other end, you'll put a double colon on one side. The others, you leave them only as zeros. Yeah, you leave the others as zeros. So you can only put the double colon one. I think, let me show you an example. Maybe let me show you some more example here. Can you confirm you're able to see my screen? The white screen.
Yeah, I can see the screen. Yeah, I can see it.
Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so this address is long, so 2001. Let's say I have this. 0, so I've already shortened it. 0.
I'm only seeing the screen with IP version.
You're saying what?
I said I could only see the screen with displaying IP version 4.
Yeah, you need to scroll. Scroll up, you will see where he's writing now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Gloria.
Are you able to see it, Gloria?
Yes, I'm seeing it because I scrolled up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I can see it. I can see it now.
Okay, good.
Okay, so this is my address. I've already used the first method. So this is 2001. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, maybe I have one more. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So this is my address. I've already applied the first method by omitting leading 0. So that's why you see I only have 0, 0. Even you have 3 numbers instead of 4. Even here I have 3 numbers. So it means there's a 0 here, there's a 0 here. And these are 4 zeros, these are 4 zeros, these are 4 zeros. So you can see I have strings of zeros here and strings of zeros. So if I want to shorten this address, there are 2 ways I can do this. I can just put a double colon here. Yeah. So instead I have 2001. So I have replaced the zeros there with a double colon. I have 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to maintain this as 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see that? So I'll put a double colon only in one place. You cannot put a double colon here and it not go here. You get Damilola? So it
yes, I
in one place. Now,
okay.
I could have also done the same. I could have put a double colon here and left and don't put it here. So you only put in one place.
Okay.
I think that's
what I'm saying, I understand this. Yes, I understand it. But I mean, if the 0, 0, I mean, like in the first, after the first column, like where you have the ABC, for example, if it was 0, and when you have the 1, 2, 3, if it was 0.
If this was 0 also.
Like when you have more than 2, 3 columns, as I mean, following each 0. That's my question. Are we still going to represent it this same way with this double column, the way you, I mean, it is being represented?
So you're saying if I have even this one, if this was a 0 also?
Yes. My question is now that with this double column that is representing the 0, 0, if we have more than 2, 3 zeros
Okay.
following each other, are we still going to increase the number of columns
Yes,
with
Damilola,
which we are
exactly.
going to
No.
represent?
So
Oh,
I've understood your question very well. So if okay, sorry. So let me clean up this. Okay, so I've understood your question very well. So if this was 2001, a double colon, sorry, not familiar with this very well. Okay, so I've figured out how to do that. So let me bring back my pen. So if this was 2001, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe A, B, C, D, maybe 0, 0, 0, 0, maybe 0, 0, 0, 0, B, 0, 0, 0, 0. This is how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, maybe 0, 3, 1, 2. So the number is saying now if these are strings, these are more than one. So this is 0 here, 0, 0, 0. These are 4. So even
yes.
these ones here, you replace with a double colon. You get that?
Okay.
Actually, you can even, if you have an address that has only zeros, only zeros, that means I've applied the first method. So I've removed the leading zeros. How many? It says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and another 0. The whole of this is equivalent to. So you can have this is a valid address in IPv6. That's a double colon. It means you have zeros in all the places.
Okay.
I think that answers your question, right?
Yeah, my question has been answered.
Okay. Okay. So let's see if we can really complete this. Let's proceed. So we've seen the rules. Now we've seen the types of addresses. Unicast, the same as it is in IP version 4, from one node to another. Multicast is used to send a single IP version 6 packet to multiple destinations. And then so we don't remember I said we don't have broadcasts in IP version 6. Yeah, we do not have broadcasts. So we have another type of address known as Anycast. This is used to send a packet to the nearest device. It's used to send to the nearest device. So unlike IP version 4, IP version 6 does not have broadcast addresses. Instead, what IP version 6 uses, it takes advantage of multicast what? Address, instead of broadcast. Now, when you talked about IP version 4, we said there are two parts of an address, the network part and the host part. The same thing happens in IP variant 6. We have the network part, but then the network part is known as the prefix. And then you have the host part. That host part is called the interface ID. Now the prefix is usually, I said usually, 64 bits. And the interface ID is also usually 64 bits. This is the normal application, that the prefix, or what you would call the network portion, is 64 bits, and the host portion is 64 bits. Though you can have a scenario where the prefix is not 64 and where the interface is not 64. But in real application, the prefix should be, if you're using that as the LAN address, the prefix should always be 64. The interface ID is also 64. And that's what you can see in the note here. It's recommended to use 64-bit interface ID for most networks. This is because of a function known as slug, which basically is a function that enables a device to automatically assign itself an address. Yeah. So that's the hierarchical structure. So you can see for an address like this, 2001 DB8 A, the first 64 bits here are the prefix, and the last 64 bits is the interface, which would say the network is 64 bits and the host is 64 bits. So there are types of addresses in IP variant 6 which can be categorized as global address. So the global address is similar to a public address. Remember the public address in IP variant 6 we talked about? In IP variant 4 rather, this is a global unicast what? Address. Yeah. And then you have what you call a link log address, which is required for every IP variant 6 enabled device. So the global is a public address. However, the link local address is not the same as a private address. The link local address is an address that is used to communicate with devices on a local link. So this is not the same as private. This is an address that is used on a link. When you talk about a link, it's more like a subnet. Yeah. So those are addresses that are confined to a link. They are never routed off the link. Those addresses are known as link local what? Address. Yeah. Then there's also what called a unique local address. A unique local address is what would be equivalent to private addresses. This is an address in this range that has this prefix. That's what will be equivalent to a private address. However, these addresses are not needed, yeah, because you do not need private and public addresses. Rather, you do not need to do nothing in IP version 6. Yeah? You can only use this address in case maybe you have several sites and you want to hide some of your sites so that they are not visible on the internet. That's when you can use this unique local address. Yeah? Because you do not do nothing in IP version 6. IP version 6 removes that functionality of translating private to public address. That is a unique local address. Okay, so IP variant 6 global unicast addresses. So this is the global unicast address that's globally unique and routable on the IP variant 6 data. This is, like I told you, the equivalent of a public address. Yeah. And currently only global unicast addresses with the first 3 bits of 001 or 2000:3. This means that the address that starts with the first significant bits in this range are being assigned. Yeah. Yeah, and so this makes only 1/8 of the the total available IP version 6 address space. So it means that what the IETF has done is that most of the blocks of IP version 6 addresses are not yet used because the adoption is still low, and also some addresses will be used. Those blocks will be used when there is need for them to be used. So, so this is the whole structure of a global unicast address. You have what you call a global routing prefix, a subnet ID, and an interface ID. Now from here, we've seen that you have a prefix which is 64 bits and an interface which is 64 bits. So from here we can see now that the interface here is 64 bits. The global routing prefix is 48 bits. So I have 48 bits here. And then the subnet ID is how many bits? If this is 48, this is 64, and the total is supposed to be 128. What is this subnet ID? The subnet ID would be guys, can you do the quick math? If this global routing prefix is 48, the interface ID is 64. So what is this subnet ID? How big is it?
-64 minus 48.
Which is 16, eh?
Yeah.
Which would be what? Which would be 16, right?
16.
Yes, exactly. That would
16.
be 16 exactly. So it means when you go to an ISP and you need an IP version 6 address, what the ISP will give you is a global routing prefix. Yeah, which ideally is going to be a /48. When it says slash, it means 48 bits. Yeah, but here in this slide, you're saying you can see they're saying that the global routing prefix is the prefix for the network portion of the address that is assigned by the provider, such as an ISP, customer, or site. The global routing prefix will vary depending on the ISP, but usually that will be a 48-bit address. Now, remember from here that your prefix should be 64. So it means you have 48, but you need to make your prefix 64. So what you're going to do is subnet. You're going to create subnets on your network. Yeah, so you have 16 bits to play around with, yeah, to make your address, to make your prefix 64. So it means the subnet ID here is 16 bits and the interface ID remains 16 bits. Always. The interface ID is always 64 bits. Yeah. It is always recommended that in the most cases, /64 subnet should be used, which creates 64-bit interface ID. Yeah. So that's about the global routing prefix, yeah, or the global unicast address. Now, how about the link local address? This is what we mean by a link. Yeah. So if I have a router here that is connecting to another router, and from this router there is a PC, remember say that each connection from a router is a network. So the connection between this router and this router is a link. The connection from this router and the PC is a link. So if you assign a link local address here, it means this PC can only communicate with this router, but never that this packet can go beyond this router and come this side. Because a link local address is only visible on the link. It's never routed off the link. So it means a link local address between this router and this router. Yes, these two nodes can communicate, but never between this router and this PC. Because a link local address is only unique on the link. Hope that makes sense. So link local address has a prefix that starts with FE80:10. When you see this /10, it means that the first 10 bits, if any address has the first 10 bits that matches this bits, is a link local address. Okay, so what is here now is the configuration on a router. I think this one we shall combine it when you're looking at the configuration of the router on IP version 4. We shall look at this practically, and I want us to do this probably tomorrow. So that's a bit of really a bit of summary about IP version 4, IP version 6 address. What is remaining is for us to look at the subnetting of IP version 4 address. We're not going to look at subnetting of IP version 6 address. That will be really very, IP version 6 addresses can be subnetted as well, but the reasons you subnet in IP version 4 is not the reasons you subnet in IP version 6. In IP version 4, you subnet to conserve addresses. In IP version 6, you subnet not to conserve addresses, but to create subnets. Yeah, so the reasons are quite different. So in IP version 6, the subnetting is usually on the subnet ID. Yeah, you only do subnetting at this point where you, this is where you do the subnetting. Okay, here, where you have a global routing prefix from the ISP, and then you want to create your subnet. That's when you do the subnetting, mostly, right there. Okay, so I'm going to, I see we're running out of time. I don't want to give you a lot of content, so I'm going to stop here. So what we'll do tomorrow is to try to summarize all these, and then we see how to assign an IP address to router, both in IP version 4 and IP version 6. In case you have questions, we can have them before we stop. Any questions? You can raise up your hand in case you have a question. There's something that's not clear. Can answer. Any question? Okay, there's a question from okay, see, I don't know if this is your name. It doesn't sound to me like.
All right. Emmanuel, my name is Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, yes. I prefer use your name.
Yeah.
When you're saying it, that I can know you. Okay, Emmanuel,
Okay.
please go ahead.
The question is, when configuring, when we were doing basic configuration for switch, and then we want to encrypt the password on the configuration files, we normally use service password encryption.
Yes.
Is it the same thing with the router? Because
Yes.
I noticed that it's like there's a little bit difference. I think service password encryption is password dash encryption. I think so.
Yeah, it's the same. It's exactly the same thing. The command is the same.
It's exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Yeah. On the router and the switch, it's exactly the same.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
Okay. Then Damilola.
Please, it's not a question really, but it's the recording of this class. Please, can we have it so that we understand those IP versions?
Yeah, the recording, yes, you can have it, but I gave one request because I told you that I'm using a free version of Cisco WebEx, which requires me to manually record and save on my computer. So it means I have to send it to you either email and then you download it through Google Drive or any other way, because now we cannot send a big file to everyone. So in case you need it, you ask me privately and I will send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, if I was using, there's a licensed version of WebEx. I've asked Cisco, they have not yet given me that licensed version. It would be easy for me to record automatically and then you can download it whenever you want. But this one is a bit, so I have to manually do what? I have to manually record and then send. So in case you need it, Damilola, just send me a message and I will send it to you. Okay, so do you have any other question coming through? Okay, before we go, I want you to do the next exam, which is chapter 8, 10. Yeah. Would be better if you do it tonight, so by the time we meet tomorrow, you're done with that exam, 8 to 10. So now I expect you to have done 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, 10. 8 to 10 now, so you can attempt that and this evening. That by the time we meet tomorrow, you have attempted it. Yeah. Any question? I have a question. I have a hand from Udemy. Please go ahead. Udemy?
Yes, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, please, Udemy. Go ahead.
Okay, my question is actually on carrying out the practical assessment.
Okay, so for the practical assessment, I would prefer you first of all to do it.
Yeah.
The practical assessment requires that you have Packet Tracer installed on your computer. So you open it and it will open in Packet Tracer. And then you attempt the question and then it will score and appear in your gradebook. Yeah.
Okay.
But in case you feel you're ready, you can go ahead and do it. I don't know if I activated it. I can activate it for you in case you feel you're ready.
Okay. I just wanted to.
But it opens in Packet Tracer.
Okay.
Then someone is asking about the pass mark. I told you it's better you score at least 75%. And why 75? It's because 75 is the minimum that Cisco will give you what you call, give you an example if you want to do a certification. So usually we use 75 as the first one. But in case you are not able to score 75 and you maybe have scored in other marks, in other modules where you can still be passed. But 75 is usually the recommended pass mark. For those ones of you who want to redo it, please have reactivated the module so you can redo it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, sir.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, I'm going to let you go. Please read ahead. Try to go through what you've done today. Go through those 2 modules. Go through them again because we're going to go through them again tomorrow. So read through the modules that we've covered today again, and then tomorrow we shall summarize and finish. So if there are no more questions, I'm going to let you go. Please take care and be safe.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you tomorrow, people.
Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Bye-bye, sir.
Stay safe, everybody.